On 2 counts and not guilty, acquitted on 3, including the most serious of charges. Ashley Banfield joins us now, my colleague and friend. Ashley, you have covered this extensively since the beginning. You know, it's been unfortunate that the public can't see what's going on inside the courtroom or hear what's going on because it's a federal case. However, you've talked to a lot of people who are very close to this case. Are you, one, surprised by the verdict, and two, how you expect the defense to try to get a lesser sentence for Diddy?
Yeah, I am. I'm as surprised at this as I was at Brian Koberger's plea deal because I followed every letter of the law in the testimony and watching the exhibits, Marnie, and I checked every box. I just find it shocking that a jury couldn't put this together. Um, but I'm sort of reminded of the long journey for women's sex rights, should I say? Because in my lifetime, a wife couldn't be raped by her husband, right? And so I sort of look at this as though a jury saw girlfriends can't be sex trafficked. A jury saw that if you're willing one day or 1 month or 1 year, and you're unwilling in another day or another month or a year, that doesn't count. And so that's what's, I think, really troubling to me on this. And I think that no matter what, the government is certainly going to push for the maximum. I believe it's 10 years for the Mann Act federally for each count. And these are not the kinds of counts that you look at concurrently, right? Because these are different. They are different dates.
Thanks for joining me here at Courageous Media. Big news day today. The Diddy verdict has dropped. And unlike Ashley on News Nation, talking about that her big problem is that, obviously the jury didn't, they didn't seem to buy that, the girlfriend angle and that the girlfriends were actually trafficked based on some of the statements that they made. I think the biggest problem with this case, I think what gives me the most heartburn uh, is the fact that it smells like a cover up. And when I say it smells like a cover up, we're going to get into that because I want you to hear from Viva Free, who appears on the Megyn Kelly show. But first, we're going to dive in with Megyn Kelly because Megyn Kelly was none too happy about this, and she did not mince words. But really, thanks everybody for rolling up. Fergie Code is in the house, as well as Amanda Wyatt. I knew we'd get off money talks. I think this is more than money, Amanda. I think this has less to do with money and more to do with certain actors within the federal government uh, basically calling in favors, covering things up, specifically the prosecutor in this case, who is the daughter of none other than James Comey. Uber corrupt, loser, life loser, deep stater, global corruptocrat, James Comey. I think that's why this thing went down. I want you to hear from Viva Free a little later on because he basically encapsulates this, but he did it months ago. So let's dive in first. While everybody's here, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you like this comment, please let us know in the comments. Hit the like button while you're here. And if you like this content, please share it with everybody that you know. Let's dive in with Megyn Kelly because she was none too happy.
Won't surprise you. Combs's body language is totally different from yesterday when he seemed crestfallen and grim after the jury said it had reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 counts. Now, acquitted of the most serious charges, Mr. Combs appears energetic and relieved. Can we just talk about, here's the picture, here's the sketch artist's picture of Combs yesterday, of the grimness, and I'm sure we'll get one today of him looking much more relieved. I'm so confused about, here's a little bit more. New York Times, with a touch of levity, the judge said he assumed Combs would not want to return to the Brooklyn jail where he has been held. Combs shook his head vigorously and put his hands together in prayer. Oh, it's all just so chummy inside the courtroom for this disgusting pervert female abuser who I can't believe is about to roam our streets again. I'm sorry, I'm disgusted by this verdict. This is fucking ridiculous. I just find it absolutely outrageous, the amount of crime that this guy just got away with.
Wow, Megyn, don't mince words. What do you really think?
believe he committed arson. He definitely battered Cassie. He battered Jane too. The statute of limitations for battery in Los Angeles and California is 1 year. 1 year. So if they didn't charge him for battery within 1 year, and they couldn't because he bought the tape and it remained hidden thanks to those security guards out there, then they could never charge him with that again. There's no question. He dragged her back into that hotel room. Why wasn't that kidnapping? They only talked about the kidnapping of Capricorn Clark, who was his sort of main assistant, because she said he grabbed her and made her go with him over to Kid Cudi's house. There's no question he broke into Kid Cudi's house, in my view, and that he opened up the Christmas presents and locked the door in and made a threat. There's no question in my mind he was behind the arson of Kid Cudi's car, and there was proof, plenty of proof to prove that. No, okay, there was female fingerprints they found on that, the firebomb that was left there, the Molotov cocktail. And the prosecution said there's no question he didn't do it himself, but he said, I'm going to bomb Kid Cudi's car. It's in writing. Cassie Ventura emailed her mother saying, oh my God, he's threatening to bomb his car. And 2 weeks later, it got bombed. Oh, gee, it was just some third party who also had, it's just like the proof was there,
Yeah.
the beatings, the threats that if they didn't go back into those rooms and get off with these male escorts, that they were gonna get beaten. The testimony from that Daniel Phillip, who was the male escort, who heard Combs abusing Cassie behind the door, and she was screaming, I'm sorry, as he heard him slapping her. Get back out there. She came back out. She was shaking. She got back into the escort's lap, physically shaking. She was so scared to the point where that guy couldn't perform sexually because this was so horrifying to him. What in the actual F went on in there?
So, Megan, let me wait.
We will never know because we weren't allowed access to the inner workings of a federal trial. But Megyn Kelly is 100% correct. The evidence is overwhelming. Just in the little bit that we heard for trafficking. For sex trafficking, the evidence is overwhelming. The coercion, the force, the battery, all of that is overwhelming. I think there is a much bigger thing at play, and I think Viva Free hit the nail on the head, and he did it months ago. This was planned from the get-go. Whether this jury nullification that we essentially got in this case was because they were handpicked to begin with, whether that jury was basically seeded with the right people who had the right ideology or who were given the right amount of money, I don't know. That is pure speculation on my part. But what is not pure speculation is who is the prosecutor. The prosecutor is James Comey's daughter, and I think she is as corrupt and up to her eyeballs in the nonsense that her father was involved in. She is a deep stater like her father. She's a global corruptocrat like her father. And I want you to hear from Viva Free because he absolutely, I believe, nails this 100%. Marlene Smith, I'm with you. It's a cover-up. It makes me sick. Check this out. Because Viva Free called this a while ago. And it's almost eerie how prescient he was.
What we've heard there, and then I've got more from the direct. Go ahead.
Megan, I'm starting off this entire process with the premise that once you view this prosecution as the cover-up and this trial as the cover-up, the entire trial takes on a whole different meaning. Diddy is a criminal. I mean, I say this, by the evidence, by what we know, by the video of him beating Cassie, and we know he's a criminal.
Which is undisputed. He does not dispute that that was him in the video beating her.
We know it. We know that this is abject degeneracy of the highest order that has spanned decades. You go back and watch Get Him to the Greek again, and you see P. Diddy's character in that movie, and you understand it was based on reality and not comedic writing. It takes on a whole new meaning. But once you look at this and say, this is supposed to be a trial about criminal sex trafficking RICO, as in there's an infrastructure. There were cameras all over P. Diddy's apartment. He was running effectively a blackmail extortion ring, and this entire prosecution has been reduced now to two witnesses, Cassie and Jane Doe. Once you start viewing this prosecution,
exactly. Before we get into the rest of his comments, I want you to think about that. The entire prosecution boiled down to two witnesses, and the entire prosecution was essentially two charges for each of the two witnesses: violations of the Mann Act and trafficking. Those are the only two charges, and then they threw on a racketeering on top of it. He had cameras in every single room of his house. Why were there not 100 witnesses? Why was not every single party goer to one of these freak-offs subpoenaed and hauled into court? Why were they not asked? Why was not every inch of their text messages, their emails, their social media, their phone calls poured through to determine who Diddy or Diddy associates had spoken to before and after freak-offs, especially people in power, whether that be business power or political power? Viva Free is absolutely correct. This trial was the cover-up, 100%, and it was orchestrated by Marlene Comey.
As the cover-up and not the exposing of the criminality, it'll take on a whole new meaning.
Covering up what though? What do you mean? Yeah, you're gonna explain.
There is an extortion ring that involves other people that is not being fleshed out here. And it's sort of like the movie The Titanic, where you have this entire backdrop of the crisis of the Titanic, and it is reduced to Billy Zane chasing the woman, I forget her name, around the boat. Like
Rose.
You have, yeah, well, I figured her name, Kate Blanchett. Winslet. So you have this entire blackmail extortion ring. They went and raided Diddy's house. There were cameras there. We know that it involves, the higher ups in the entertainment industry, if not the world of politics as well. And this entire prosecution is reduced to P. Diddy and what we know of his abuse of Cassie and potentially Jane. And then once you flesh out the fact that for whatever the reason, Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, is still involved as one of this trial. This trial is a show trial because they're going to get him on something. It might just be the, trafficking for prostitution purposes, which seems undeniable. Send him away for 10 years. Maybe he gets out after 8. And then you've successfully covered up the entire extortion ring that P. Diddy was running, much like what they did with Epstein.
Oh, that's
100%. Listen to what he just said. They will most likely convict him on the Mann Act charges for 2 people, for which he might get 10 years out in 8. Now, hopefully, the government goes for the maximum, gets the maximum, in which case he gets 10 years twice, serving consecutively. He might be out in 16. But even then, they have covered up the real crime. They tried him for sex trafficking twice, Mann Act violations twice, and racketeering once, when there should have been hundreds of counts of blackmail, hundreds of counts of extortion, hundreds of other potential counts that could range anywhere from trafficking to treason to espionage, you name it. They have successfully covered up the real crime. And it's Marlene Comey, who was, incidentally, the prosecutor for Ghislaine Maxwell in the Epstein case. She is up to her eyeballs in covering up these blackmail, extortion, leverage schemes that essentially the CIA was running. Our own government, along with other foreign intelligence services, were running these 2 operations. One was Epstein, one was Diddy, and they have successfully covered up the whole thing by staging a show trial, giving you a shocking verdict that everybody will talk about for weeks. Meanwhile, Diddy will do some prison time, and theoretically, everything will be forgotten. They can't have him innocent because then everybody would be up in arms and they would still be clamoring for some level of justice. He'll go away for a while, but the reality is the real crime and the real essentially outworking and all of the the ramifications of that crime going into the political world and the business power world are all now just shoved under the rug. Viva Free had it absolutely correct. We have witnessed two-tier justice system, but I think it's even bigger than that. I think it's government, deep state workings at their best. Just so you know, we always bring receipts. So here is Marlene Comey. She is the prosecutor in the P. Diddy case, as she was in the Maxwell Epstein case. And here we are again with Marlene. Here we go. Did James Comey's daughter throw the Diddy trial? If you ask me, I believe she absolutely did. That's my opinion. And the facts that I'm leaning on are the fact that the biggest crime in the Diddy case was never even brought to court. Where was the blackmail? Where was the extortion? Why did they not show the thousands of hours of footage from every camera in the man's home. Why was not every text message that was sent to a freak-off partygoer exposed in court? And why were those people not called? What did Diddy say to you before the party? What did he say to you after? What information did he ask you for? What did you provide? What was, did he threaten to release the tapes? Blah, blah. And, this whole thing just stinks to high heaven, if you ask me. Dan Chasteen, makes a lot of sense. I completely agree. Yep, I think it's a cover-up. I think they successfully did to the Diddy case what they did to the Epstein case, because I believe that Diddy and Epstein are mirror images of each other. Not mirror. They are basically just transcribed copies of each other, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, one primarily politics, the other primarily entertainment, but with a whole lot of bleed over. And they were two, I believe, intelligence operations. They were two blackmail leverage operations in order to basically put people under their thumb. And they did it very successfully. And now they have escaped prosecution. They have escaped the outing of all of this. That's why I don't think we will ever see a list of all of the perpetrators in the Epstein case. I don't think we will ever see a list of everybody who went to these parties. We'll never see the proof. I believe they've buried the proof because they don't want you to know. Now, that was obviously one piece of huge news today. We have another piece of huge news today, which is on the Trump success side. I would call this, this is a win, I believe, for the deep state. In as much as it's a win for the deep state, it's a loss for Trump, although Trump was never really invested in the whole Diddy thing. But they've got to get Marlene Comey. Marlene Comey has got to get fired. She needs to be fired today. She has failed twice. Just fire her for job performance and be on with it. But I would also investigate to see if she did this on purpose. And I would try to pull on that thread to see if we can't untangle what's been going on with these two cases. But with that, we will leave the Diddy case. Let's move on to the huge, huge piece of news today, which is just absolutely massive. We've got breaking news out of the Trump camp. I want you to see this. This is amazing stuff. Trump is winning. Trump said you were going to get tired. He said it as a joke. Hey, you guys are going to get tired of winning. You're just so tired of winning. You're going to win so much. You're going to say, stop the winning. I'm tired. I am not tired of winning. And we've got more winning today. Check this out.
We're just getting this. Trump revealing details of his trade deal with Vietnam. He says Vietnam will pay United States a 20% tariff on any and all goods sent into our territory. He said a 40% tariff on any transshipping. He also said United States of America will have total access to their markets for trade. And Trump says we will be able to sell our products into Vietnam at zero tariff. Look at the markets. Maybe the market turnaround has something to do with that news on trade in Vietnam. And
wow, 100%. This is absolutely huge breaking news. Trump has signed, they are signing a trade deal with Vietnam. Here's the details. As he said, Vietnam is going to pay us 20% on all goods, 40% on transshipped goods, which is basically a slap in the face to China, because this is what China has done for a long time to avoid US tariffs. They've shipped through third-party countries. Well, that's called transshipment. And Trump basically says you transship anything, the tariff doubles. Meanwhile, for the first time in history, Vietnam will be open to US goods, especially cars. So the US will now be able to ship goods into Vietnam at a 0% tariff. They're paying us 20%. We're paying zero. This is the kind of trade deal that you can make when you hold all the cards as the world's largest consumer economy. Now, this puts pressure immediately on China. It also puts pressure on other countries in the region like Japan. And Trump took a shot at Japan while he was announcing this huge win. Check this out.
They won't take other products that we have. But they and others are so spoiled from having ripped us off for 30, 40 years that it's really hard for them to make a deal. You know, it's very hard. As an example, with Japan, they won't take rice, and yet they desperately need rice. You know that. But they won't take rice. They won't take other products that we have. But think of it, they need rice so badly, but they won't take rice. I figured that was an easy one. Or the cars, as you know, they send out millions. We didn't give them one car in 10 years. They won't take any cars, but they'll sell millions of cars. So we told them, sorry, you can't do that. And we have a great relationship, great reliance, and really a great sort of a partnership in a way. But on trade, they've been very unfair. And those days are gone. So what I'm going to do is I'll write them a letter, say we thank you very much. And we know you can't do the kind of things that we need. And therefore you'll pay a 30%, 35%, or whatever the number is that we determine, because we also have a very big trade deficit with Japan, as you know. And it's very unfair to the American people. So they maybe will be happy, they maybe won't be happy. But some countries we won't even allow to trade. But for the most part, we're going to determine a number, just very simply write them a nice letter, probably one page or a page and a half at the most. And it's going to be essentially congratulations. It's going to be an honor to allow you to go and do business in the United States of America, because it really is an honor to be able to do that.
It 100% is a privilege to do business in the United States. To sell your product into the US market is a privilege. We are 39% of the world's global consumption. We are the world's customer. And if you don't show us customer service, then you cannot sell in our market. Trump is absolutely rocking the world right now. Vietnam is essentially, look at that trade deal. They pay 20% to get into our market, and they allow us into their market for zero. We were never allowed in the Vietnam market before. It's absolutely amazing. This is great, great stuff. And I want to, because on the heels of, so this is, so he's putting pressure now on Japan. He's putting pressure on other companies. I love what he said. He said, we're going to start sending out letters. Now, remember that the letter he's talking about is because July 9th is the deadline. That's when all of the reciprocal tariffs go back into effect. They start hitting all these countries. Well, Vietnam got in under the wire. He's encouraging other countries to get in under the wire. Otherwise, on July 9th, he's going to send a nice letter saying, hey, you have the option to trade in the US market at such and such a tariff. Have a nice day. And that'll be that. And Trump has already proven that countries cannot, in many cases, cannot exist without the US market. I think there will be another tidal wave of countries come clamoring for bilateral trade agreements with the US. You've got England now, you've got Vietnam. He's finalizing deals, according to Trump, with India and China. Now we'll see who else gets on board. And Trump, this is such a huge win that there's a little bit of bleed over. And I want to show you this because I think this is just classic. This is complete Trump. On the heels of a huge win, he just goes out there on a limb and calls for Reserve Chair Powell to resign, which I think he should. He should have lowered rates a long time ago. So Trump garners a huge win on trade. That's absolutely fantastic stuff. Meanwhile, Trump is winning around the board, all over the place. I want to dive into a poll number. We're going to tell just a snippet, but I want to dive into this whole thing because Trump is making history. Please, before we get into this, like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know that you're here. Let us know in the comments. Comments for the algorithm. We absolutely believe in that because they help us to get noticed on YouTube. And if you really like the content, please share it with everybody that you know. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, join us as a member of Courageous Army on YouTube or on Patreon. Now, let's dive in. I'm going to cover briefly these polls, and we're going to get into a lot more detail. But first, we're going to get into the fact that the Dems are coping and seething over the fact that they cannot destroy Trump. Check this out.
We're going to look at the strongly approved numbers. So this isn't just Republicans who like Donald Trump. This is Republicans who love Donald Trump, and he's up like a rocket. Look at this. In July 2017, the strongly approved was 53%. That's pretty good. But look at where he is now. 63% of Republicans strongly approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing about 5 months into his presidency. Republicans love Donald Trump the way that Americans love Disney World.
Absolutely true. So Trump is we're going to get into the fact that he's making history, but this is massive. This is strongly approved. Now, this is Republicans, this is not Democrats, 63%. We're going to get into the history of that. But first, I want to dive into one of the things that is propelling him here, and that is his entire immigration policy. Check this out. Because he had a huge day yesterday where he visited Alligator Alcatraz, which is an amazing accomplishment by DeSantis, really. Check this out.
But all the stuff that goes into intake and processing of illegals, you're seeing this put up. This is all 24 hours. 24 hours from now, you're going to see even more. And by Tuesday, this will be able to have intake of illegals.
And you've thought of everything. Okay, so there are 4 gigantic tents. Let's come on over here, Governor. And people are thinking, okay, you're in the middle of the Everglades. It's hot. That would explain why you've got this bank of air conditioners here.
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be, illegals will come in, they'll be processed. There'll be places for them to be housed. You'll have an ability for food. You'll have an ability for them to consult legal rights if they have that, because there is a process that's involved with this. So this is really everything. This is going to be a self-contained little area. And then, of course, you also have stuff for the staff that work here. So we've got laundry facilities, we've got showers, we've got, obviously, there you see the shower and bath facilities.
Yep, right there.
Yep.
Where do you go to get a bunch of bathrooms like that?
Well, so this is being done by the Division of Emergency Management. So when we have a hurricane, like we would actually have people stage here for hurricane response normally, anyways, but we have it. When we have all the linemen come in to do the power, we have to set up little areas for them. And so you have all this type of stuff. So this is not our first rodeo. The detainee illegal alien mission's a little bit different, and the deportations, but logistics, we know how to do that.
Right, and you know, for people
and they did this all in a week. This camp is going to be up and running and ready to go in a week. This is amazing stuff by DeSantis, and this is a huge win by Trump. And the media types are coping and seething over it. Check out Joy Reid. Joy Reid is back at it. She's a complete train wreck, but here we go.
Tried to forget about him, but Ron DeSantis is still governor of Florida. He took the Comfy Couch hosts on a tour of the concentration camp that he's building in Florida in order to round up people, brown people, and throw them in a camp because he doesn't want them in Florida. Surprise, surprise, the economy of Florida is going to be severely harmed by rounding up brown people who, by the way, all over this country, Latinos are afraid to go to work. Anybody who is perceived or looks Latino is afraid to go to work. I know people who are not Latino, but they're brown, and so they look Latino to the naked eye, if you don't know any better, who are walking around with their passports, who never leave home without a passport. Tried to forget about him, but Ron DeSantis.
So Joy Reid is absolutely apoplectic, and I love it. I love it. I love Joy Reid tears because she is such a train wreck. So now she's basically saying this is a concentration camp, and Trump is just running around rounding up brown people. This has nothing to do with skin color or ethnicity or anything else. It has to do with, are you in the country illegally? And guess what, Joy? America is not with you on this one. You can cope and seethe and cry and shed tears all you want. America is not.
You know, if we just take a look at the baseline numbers here, this is Trump's net approval rating on immigration. It's gone up like a rocket. Compare now versus 8 years ago during Trump's first term. Look at this. In his first term, Trump was way, way, way underwater at minus 21 points. But look at this. He's up over 20 points. Now, in the aggregate, he is in positive territory at plus 1 point on his net approval rating. Some other polls even have it a little bit higher than that. There is no issue on which Trump is doing so much better than he was in his first term, more than the issue of immigration. No wonder the Times has written up the way that he is. Trump is begging for a fight on this because he knows what he's doing so far is working with the American electorate.
Where does immigration rank on issues for him? How is he doing compared to others?
Yeah, so I think what's so important is it is his top issue so far. And the reason it is his top issue is because take a look at the individual nuggets in here. Why are people approving of Trump on immigration, approve of these different immigration actions, while Trump's administration's program to deport those here illegally. Look at this, 54% approval. How about agents searching your hometown for those that they think are here illegally? Again, positive territory here, above 50% for Donald Trump. So it's not just on the broad issue of immigration where Trump is doing well, it's on the specifics. When you dive into the issues, Trump is above 50% and his actions are above 50%, at least with those most directly connected to what's going on right now out in Los Angeles.
So
exactly, Joy Reid. America is not with you. You are standing, you have planted yourself like every other Democrat firmly on the 20% side of the scale on an 80-20 issue. And that is why Trump is making history with approval. We're going to dive back into this other poll. This is absolutely amazing stuff. Here we go.
The bottom line is 63%. That is a huge, huge base. And of course, it's just part of a Republican base in which about 90% of them overall approve of him, including the somewhat approves as well.
I mean, every politician would like this number here, especially to see it go up. How about compared to other presidents who were Republicans?
Yeah, it's history making. It's history making. What are we talking about here? So why don't we look back? We have all the presidents, Republican presidents, going back over the last 35, 36, 37 years. What are we talking about? GOP, who strongly approved 5 months in. Look at this. George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this. 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. And I was looking even back since Reagan. And get this, Donald Trump beats Ronald Reagan when it comes to the strongly approved 5 months. And of course, Reagan was coming off that high after that assassination attempt. So the bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president 5 months in. It is history making.
And this is the strongly approve. When you add the approve and somewhat approve, Trump is in the 90s, 90% approval with the GOP, which is why he commands such power. Check this out, because when it comes to, this is Trump's approval. Check this out.
And it's not just the polling. We actually have the data to show that the Republican base is with Donald Trump. The times Trump endorsees won the GOP primary for governor and congressional races. Look at this. 2024, 96%. 2022, 95%. 2020, 98%. The bottom line is this. 95% plus of the time, the Trump-endorsed candidate wins in GOP primaries. And even in the cases where Donald Trump endorses a challenger to an incumbent, the majority of the time, that challenger wins. So Donald Trump is a winner in Republican primaries. You go against Donald Trump, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go in the grinder. Donald Trump is the key nugget. His endorsement is the key nugget in a GOP primary because he's historically strongly popular with the GOP base.
And that is why the big, beautiful bill will pass, because there is not a congressman in the House that is going to stand up and potentially get primaried by Trump. Also, because they know they have a mechanism to go get the other spending cuts that they want. And that is weekly rescission bills that are nothing more than mini reconciliations that they can go on all year. So my prediction is Trump will have the big, beautiful bill on his desk, if not July 4th, July 5th or 6th. He will have it. It'll get signed. That'll be the next win in the coffer. And then all we're waiting for is Powell to resign or to actually lower rates, and then potentially a ceasefire with Gaza that is already in the works. Hey, guys, thanks so much for rolling up. Really appreciate everybody being here. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Please share Courageous Media with everybody that you know. Support the channel by joining us on YouTube or on Patreon. Really appreciate everybody being here. Remember, God is good and he is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.